The views presented in this program are not meant to express the specific views of the Lafayette Bible Fellowship. You are listening to the Vigilance Radio Network.
Welcome back to Culture. Welcome back to the Culture Insanity Podcast, Season 2, Episode 2. Welcome back. As promised, we once were 2, but now we are 3. So we have with us now a third host in Pastor Monty McGarry of Truth Time with Monty McGarry. Would you like to say hello to the good people?
Hello, good people. Good to be here. Looking to have a lot of fun.
Yeah. So
you like me right now.
the demand was so high.
Sally feels early.
It's a good bit. So he is here to offer his wealth of experience and wisdom and knowledge to all things that we talk about. So welcome to him, and we're glad to have him on our podcast. And yeah. Liam Neeson, that's a hot topic lately. There's a follow-up to that in regards to something that Sam Harris said. We'll talk about who Sam Harris is in a second, for those of you that don't know. Ellen Page and Chris Pratt are going at it on some level. And yeah, so we're going to be talking about these things and some of the things that are being ways then maybe that we're called to respond to these things or to be thinking about these things. So yeah, we're happy to be back. Season 2, Episode 2. So, as Josh is getting the technical side of things up and running, we'll start off with maybe one of the less controversial hot topic issues. So, video as well, but and this is sort of a change pace for what we normally talk about.
It's been that long.
Yeah, 10 years. So and people that want to, continue, if you will, that you can have with something that's physical rather than digital. And so people are picking up physical books more and more, even to the point where it's becoming like not... Yeah, I read physical books. Look at all the physical books that are on my coffee table and on my bedside. "10 years ago, and for a long time, reading books made you a nerd or something, like you weren't cool for doing that, but now it's becoming a status symbol as well as a practicality thing."
Hey, so for the listeners out there, we're having some technical issues. We keep disconnecting for some reason.
Yeah. So it's becoming a... simply always outlast function. So beauty not in obviously the aesthetic of a Kindle versus a book, but like beauty in the experience with something rather than maybe if something is more functional, even if that's true. And it is more functional, let's be honest. You can carry 100,000 books in 1 pound rather than 200,000 pounds or whatever, however much a book weighs. So what are your guys' thoughts on that? Does beauty always outlast?
Wow.
Are you an ebook connoisseur or a physical book connoisseur, Pastor Monty?
Oh, I'd say probably physical.
Yeah.
I mean, in the first place, I don't run with the crowd. So the whole Kindle thing or like that, I mean, I've tried once or twice to read books on the devices. It didn't do anything for me. I don't think. It just doesn't do anything for me.
Different generation?
Potentially. I like the ability to, walk into my office and look off to the side and take note that I have a expansive library.
I think that's exactly the point.
That I can look at. And
So it's a status symbol.
Well, I'm
part of the point.
I'm the only one there, so it's not so much a status symbol.
Well, it could be a status symbol for you.
Well, I don't know.
Like a personal status symbol.
Do you actually
like
have a library? Like a room dedicated to like a study?
I
You
have, well, Josh and I have talked about this. I mean, I've got to basically go through and get rid of all my books because we're, trying to downsize. But yeah, and that's the other thing about physical books is that, man, they're heavy. When you get them all together, they're heavy. And they're hard to move around, but whereas the beauty of the Kindle or the ebook is that, like you said, you have all those books.
Well, one of the things the writer was suggesting in this article, and it's a good article, and people, it's being posted, you should read it, but...
It is posted.
Yeah, the relationship you have with the physical book trumps that of digital in things like how you bookmark your page and how you're referencing back to a certain point that really struck you and knowing how far you've come in the book, because on like a Kindle, for those of you that have, you get a percentage, but it maybe doesn't reflect the accurate percentage because who knows what sort of appendix follows the completion of the book. So you never really know when you're done with it. It's just helps you like it engages something in your mind maybe versus something that's digital, like it helps you to recall it more, like typing or writing, right? They say like people that in school that take notes, they're writing what's being said.
I encourage my students and you can't do that with an ebook.
Yeah, so retention.
Well, I guess you can, but it's more cumbersome.
Yeah, you can take notes.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, you can even directly search Wikipedia and things like that from your notes.
Right, and that'd be cool, except, see, then now you've got a learning curve attached to how do you make the damn thing work, and I just, that's too much work for me.
It's super simple.
Yeah, I'm interested because Josh is a student of both practices,
Yeah, that is right.
And he takes on technology with open arms in most cases.
Yep. Although I will not do subdermal technology.
Is the physical maybe why the digital is dying and the physical is rising again?
I do think that there is a certain relationship to be had with an art form that comes from having can't because it's like the brushstrokes are important. You see, like they tell something about the history of the artist, the way that they moved their hands,
how fast and how slow.
Exactly. So, super nerdy about it. We have the grab a little link over there. There we go. We have these things. This guy right here.
That's an amiibo.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, this is called an amiibo. And what it is it's a piece of technology for video games. It's a little statue, and it has a little chip inside of it that allows a character to be played in a video game, right?
Cool.
So, but the thing is, you can have the card version, and so you can carry the card around. And it just has the art, and so it's sort of a similar thing. It's like, what is more? What do you want more? I think it just really depends. It depends on the person and what you're trying to accomplish from it. I do think as human beings, we like to have a tactile relationship with things because we're 3D. You know, we're three-dimensional creatures. So having three-dimensional things to books in the sense that you can intuitively sense without your visual how far you are in a book. I don't agree with the assessment that you can't know more specifically, because like, for instance, with a Kindle, it's like, yeah, you can choose to have it be percentage, but it will also tell you what page you're on if you wanted to, and so on and so forth. Right. There's a lot more information available if you know what you're doing with it. But it's not tactile. It's not engaging a lot of your senses, and there is just something profound about a good cover, for instance, on a book, you know? So, I don't know. I do both. My opinion is that if I want, then I'm going to buy it, like a physical copy of it. But if it's something that I just need to,
how would you connect that with how we should be treating our Bibles, for example? Like, I know within our church, we are big advocates for, you know, your physical Bible. Like, get away from the digital. But given what you just said, like, do you think there's a difference when it comes to the Word? Like, what would you say in regards to that? You know, like having a relationship with your Bible and, you know, marking it up, like Pastor Monty's saying.
Right. So yeah, I believe in that. I believe that we're supposed to have a relationship with our Bible, that it is. When HeartScribe, which is ABF's like Bible study term or whatever, one of the things that I taught when I started that particular ministry was that marking up your Bible. Well, the Bible is a relationship that God wants to have with you. It's God's dialogue with you. And so when you mark up your Bible, you are responding to God. It's you dialoguing. It changes from being a monologue to you dialoguing back. That said, the Bible's a little bit different because it just doesn't just stop at the tangible. It's like it should be in our hearts, right? So then the Bible becomes reference material for the library that's being made in our hearts. Like a lot of people do with like...
That was a real soundbite, by the way. Went for the library that's being made in our hearts. It's like, whoa.
Like a lot of people do, like they can quote off the cuff, like Deadpool or like movies people or whatever. Step.
And in the house.
So, yeah, like
so you think there's a you would say you should.
I mean, let's like the Bible. You know, it was like on scrolls and papyrus and things like that before it was then transferred to something that had a spine. Yeah. So we have been consistently throughout the years altering the technology that we use to interact with it. The most important technology that we have to interact with it is our hearts. So it's different. But I'm a big fan of collections. You can see behind Pastor Monty, you can see, I will zoom in on it right there. You can see the toy collection that I have behind Pastor Monty. It's, you know, like I love collections. I have a vinyl collection. I have books. I have toys. I have pops. I have like all sorts of things, which, by the way, last night I read that Funko just got the licensing for The Office. There's a Michael Pop. There's going to be
Scott?
one of my spots on my pop shelf that you guys can't see is going to be taken up by Michael Scott. He's going to oust somebody.
You don't know who yet?
No.
Poor somebody.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. So the Liam Neeson thing. First of all, are you tracking the Liam Neeson thing, Pastor Monty?
To a degree.
So the long and short of the Liam Neeson thing for people that haven't been. Liam Neeson is promoting a movie right now where the basic premise is his character taking vengeance, or vengeance is a theme in the movie. So in promoting the movie, he's asked a question about how he taps into that sort of mentality when he's... He shares a story, which he will later regret, where he talked about many, many years ago, I don't know what it was exactly, but many, many years ago, he had gone back home and found out that one of his close friends was like brutally raped by a black person, he says. And so for a week, or whatever he said, there was a period of time where he was so angry and filled with rage that he walked the streets looking for, I believe is the gist of that. He wanted to hurt the person that hurt his friend. Well, not just the person, but any person. That's how bad it was for him. So he shared this, and it was a vulnerable moment for him, and he shared it in the context of something that he's ashamed of, okay? So two things. Something he never did, but wrestled with in his mind and in his heart, and two, something that he shared in the context of being ashamed of who he was in that period of time. You know, how he could get so low into feeling this way towards a group of people. Well, he's being blacklisted or something. Like, he's in the process of being blacklisted. There's all this outrage about how Liam Neeson is a racist, promoting, like, you know, hate, categorical hate on a group of people, and all this stuff. And it's really interesting and really unfortunate for him, because, again, this is something that never actually happened, but rather just something he shared with, like, wrestling with. And so, your guys' thoughts, but the question is, in a world with, like, no basis of, or no understanding or lack of acknowledgement of, like, sin and its effect in our lives, is it like a complete social danger to even share how you've wrestled with it in light of what's happening with Liam Neeson, for example? He's being, like, there's a thing going around, he's a petition maybe that he should be, like, digitally removed from all his scenes, and I think Men in Black or something like that, a movie that's coming out in the summer. Like, get the whole promotion of the movie was axed. Like, they stopped doing promo for the movie because of all the heat it was bringing on it, and all this stuff, all because this guy shared, you know, was vulnerable in sharing what he shared, something that he didn't do. So what are your guys' thoughts on this and just the state? And we have a follow-up to this topic too, which is also interesting.
Wow. Well, Liam Neeson is age-wise is old school, from the standpoint that, you know, he grew up under a different generation, and you would think that he would be more savvy, and yet, I mean, you have to live life today in such a way that you are careful
Very.
and set boundaries for what you're going to share and what you're not going to share, just because there are always going to be people who are going to take what you say out of context and try to manipulate it for whatever they're. So, yeah, I mean, I would, first of all, do all people in some form or another share the same type of thoughts that Liam Neeson is vocalizing? Potentially, yeah. Yeah, everybody does. That's in part how we wrestle with the circumstances in life that we face, and how we weigh good versus evil, and how we address a particular situation which we're confronted with. We go through this process where we weigh, do I, don't I, do or don't I, and so he was simply sharing that mental process that he went through. He didn't act on it. He's simply saying that I was so enraged that the thought frustrating moment. So then you have these people that, are now angry with him because he even expressed that that's a possibility. These people are hypocritical. I mean, really, they're hypocritical. But today you have, because there are more and more pushing them to manipulate whatever you say. And Liam Neeson is not the only one of my generation who's discovering this.
Well, I just think it's interesting because I'm sure that he, however quickly or not quickly he processed, okay, I'm going to say this right now, but I'm sure that it was with the intention of condemning it, and he did in the same breath that he's talking about it. He's condemning that attitude he had. So I just think it's interesting that people don't want to take the whole of what he's saying. He said it with the intention of saying, "Look, this is bad. Don't be like I was," But now it's being turned on him like he's this terrible human being.
Well, and he expressed guilt
Yeah.
on top of it. Like he said that he still feels guilty about having those thoughts.
Yeah. So it's really scary. And this is another one of those things. This is how many years ago? A lifetime ago. So follow up to this is I was listening to the Joe Rogan Experience, a very popular podcast for people that listen to podcasts. And this was last week, Sam Harris was on. So for those of you who don't know, Sam Harris is what, Josh? One of the
four horsemen of the apocalypse.
Yeah. Sam Harris is
he's
a leading atheistic
okay.
What would you call it?
Proponent.
Preacher.
Right. Well, yeah, he's an advocate for atheism.
Yeah.
It's a term that's used within both the atheist community and the Christian community to denote four different gentlemen. One of them who's dead now. I think it's Christopher Hitchens.
Yeah.
But it's like Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, Christopher Hitchens, and I don't know.
Yeah.
It's the one that would represent famine.
Yeah.
Which one of the horsemen is he?
He's just one of them. Yeah, because they're like, whenever they come together, they really bring it against Christianity.
Yeah, they're really,
which
really
for the record they
outspoken.
don't. But
Yeah, they're really outspoken against
Well,
it. So anyways,
they think they do.
yeah. The interesting thing about Sam Harris on Joe Rogan was this topic, this Liam Neeson thing got brought up, and he is basically saying, really begging for people to reevaluate their idea of forgiveness and grace and stuff. He says things like, we need to think through the whole process of redemption. We need to rethink the whole process of redemption.
right,
It's already
borrowing
yes.
from religious terms
Yeah.
in order to justify it.
Yeah. And then what he says, what is the criteria for successful apologies and forgiveness? People want to see Liam Neeson burned alive, but the same people on the left have as the norm the general rehab of murderers. So how are they distinguishing, what's okay and what's not okay, when we should do this to these people versus not these people? We need to figure out how to talk about how people can redeem themselves when unsavory things like this are revealed. He But so the question is, this is going to be obvious to you guys, obviously, but in this guy's worldview, this Sam Harris, whose whole worldview operates on time plus chance and random nothingness, why does someone like Sam Harris want to insist on the practice of redemption and forgiveness? Is Sam consistent in his worldview?
No, no, he's not. But why he wants to insist on it is because, you know, we as human beings are made in the image of God, and there are certain things we resonate with. And I think Sam Harris is an advocate for a worldview that's not sustainable, it's not consistent, but he hasn't really had to live with the implications of his worldview. Mm-hmm. But now he's beginning to see those implications. I mean, he's a smart guy, mm-hmm. you know. He's beginning to see those implications and realizing that having a world without religious themes in it is more detrimental. He's not. I doubt. I mean, I pray for him and hope that he does turn to God, but I doubt that he will reach out. I doubt that he will go back to the teachings that first talk about those things. But when we talk about Sam Harris, he's not like Richard Dawkins. Like, Richard Dawkins is definitely the death of the four horsemen. He's just, he's a really belligerent, argumentative panel member, and fairly irrational by my opinion. He'll advocate, for instance, that Hitler was a reasonable choice, and who are we to question what Hitler's morality was in regard to the Jews? Because he's just a bag of protoplasm, and what does that matter? There's no morality in that. So there's that. But Sam Harris isn't that way. Sam Harris is very much we should all love each other and do what's right for each other. He just doesn't want to recognize what right is. That he doesn't want to recognize that he doesn't have the right to say what right is if he doesn't have a personal God. It just doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm. But he generally people. So, yeah, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I thought it was interesting that he was on that podcast, because I am reading a book that is a commentary on his book Letter to a Christian Nation, I think it's called.
Yeah, something like that.
Where it's a pretty direct and attack on all things Christian worldview. So for him to be on the podcast, just this is really interesting and relevant for me right now because I'm reading this, and then to hear him like Josh is saying, express a genuine care for people and how we should treat each other, but given his worldview, it was just it's sad, like Josh is saying, and I as well. You pray for that this person, comes to know God and accepts God in his life, but to see how their worldview just so easily falls apart in on itself.
Well, I think that there's an attempt by Sam Harris to move the discussion from within his worldview. He's attempting to at least show some intellectual honesty that, as I stated in my open, that all people wrestle with these types of decisions and how it is that they approach the circumstances of life. Now, because of his worldview and his ability to be pure and to be intellectually honest, because he's not, but at least he's making that attempt. The attempt by where our society is at today is that everything's based upon that emotional level, and they're being dishonest, and that they're not taking all the facts into consideration, even what he said in the hole. They're
Yeah.
just pulling out what they want to.
Well, it's a category issue.
Yeah, yeah.
I was reading commentary, or not commentary. Yeah, in the comment section. I was reading in the comment section about like people saying things like they should, in the digital removal, that they're kind of treating it like Plummer.
Yeah.
That he should be removed digitally, and then Christopher Plummer be put in place with Kevin Spacey. With what happened with Kevin Spacey. Removed because of allegations that were made against him, like allegations that were credible, that were made against him, and the studio wanted to remove themselves from that. He was accused of doing something wrong. That is not the same thing as Liam Neeson saying that he thought about doing something wrong.
Well, and these people
and that he recognizes was wrong.
Didn't actually do it.
And these people that operate on this emotional level where they get all tied up in, all this type of stuff now should be done, he should be removed, all that stuff, they're really belying their ignorance. I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back to saying that these people suffer from a difficult case of AI. I mean, they're both arrogant and ignorant, and the reality of it is
this is a new Truth Time with Pastor Monty phrase that he's trying to make popular.
AI.
I have a clip for that somewhere. You keep going. Oh, here it is.
Gretchen, stop trying to make fetch happen. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, well, yes, it will happen. The reality of it is
Don't make it happen.
These people are simply arrogant and ignorant, and Liam Neeson's under contract.
Well,
And-
they could break contract.
and pay a penalty for that.
That's what they did with Kevin Spacey.
Well, that's fine.
And then they
hired
hired Christopher Plummer on top of
Cost
it.
a lot of money. That Kevin
and,
Spacey
and
missed
so
it.
if I was Liam Neeson and they violated my contract in that way and I walked away with a couple $1 million, I'd go, cool.
So the other side I would say to this is I think Liam Neeson is fairly on the same side as it doesn't really address the moral issue. Like the moral issue is scary, but I think Liam Neeson is somewhat on the same side as William Shatner. Like I feel like, not politically or anything.
Yeah, but Shatner has that attitude where I don't care.
That's my point.
Yeah.
I think that Liam Neeson, he's had multiple stages of a career.
Yeah.
And he's tapered off and come back and tapered off and come back, and he's like in his 5th movie career or something. And I feel
Action hero Liam Neeson.
right, and I feel like he will ride this out, and people will forget about it. But they'll try to brand him, as we see, as being mentally unstable, as opposed to being an actor.
Yeah,
Well,
Colin was asking me this last
Aren't
night.
all actors kind of mentally unstable?
Maybe. Colin was asking me this last night. Our friend Colin. He was asking me, like, he was just expressing difficulty in taking in the news and giving it credence, because how long are things even going to last? And he's looking at this thing on the board here, like, how long is this Liam Neeson thing even going to be in the forefront of our minds? Like, is this something that in a week is not going to matter? And maybe, but also maybe 20 years removed, Michael Jackson's name is being, re-drugged through the mud. So
Right.
maybe not. And it's just interesting that,
Or Kevin Hart, like 10 years after comments were made.
Oh yeah. And see, that's the thing right now is these people that have their own agenda,
Or
they're-
James Gunn.
they're willing to go back 20 and 30 years. You wrote a phrase in your yearbook when you were 18 years old.
When you were a child mentally.
Really?
That's a good
Really?
one. Yeah. Well, no duh, I was immature and inappropriate and acted like in all these ways because I was 18 years old. Or they're like, man, this culture that just wants to destroy you at the drop of a hat, and it's so scary.
But to address the initial question, I know we need to move on, but to address the initial question, I don't I don't think that Liam Neeson shouldn't have said what he said, and I think people need to be bold in that way. I think they need to say what, where they're coming from. Otherwise, people aren't going to normalize it's not going to normalize the idea that everybody struggles with those sorts of thoughts. And that's why it's so dangerous, I think, to the cultural leftist, is because it sort of throws out the concept of intersectionality. And it basically says that a person who is not these things is also capable of being racist inside their head, and so on and so forth. And it's like, if that can be true, if Liam Neeson can be a racist without being a racist, then maybe I'm a racist too without being a racist, and vice versa. Maybe
certainly capable of it.
Maybe I'm not a racist, even though I claim to be a racist. Like, it basically muddies the water of who is what they are. And it
muddies the water because it also muddies the definition of what is what.
Right.
Just because you want to go out and beat somebody up that happens to be of a different ethnicity doesn't mean that you're a racist.
Right.
Racism is, and we're going to have to deal with this later in one of our podcasts, but racism has to do with the issue that you feel that your particular race is superior over somebody else.
Sure.
That's not the issue here.
No, I mean, it could be as simple as a person with a red baseball cap beat up my...
So now I'm going to look for...
anybody who has a red baseball cap.
Yeah. But you're exactly correct. This is one of the cards that gets thrown out there when people want to justify or they don't know how to deal with a particular thing. I love that. Remember we were talking about it. Remember I talked about on my podcast that interview that took place where the gal couldn't justify where she was coming from, so she told the talk show host that that he had white privilege.
Oh, right.
And he had to remind her, he had to tell her she didn't do her research very well because she was talking to somebody who is black. But that's what they do. They fall back on stuff and then try to project that. And it's from the standpoint that then it muddies the water of what we're actually talking about. So just because you throw the racist card out there, and you're being intellectually dishonest when it's not really it.
Swinging the racist bat. It reminds me, to your point, Josh, talking about Liam Neeson as, a dynamic person rather than just this object. Right. When we talk about it with our kids, too, the importance of needing to share in what ways you struggled growing up so that your kids can learn from you and know that, you went through these same things, and so this is why, they can respect and appreciate you because you've grown past these things and you've grown and all these different things. Same thing with Liam Neeson.
Well, and I think there's another factor to it, which is our culture has been inundated with a process called virtue signaling. Virtue signaling,
right?
That just basically is it's a way of talking about your affiliation with a particular position, even though you may not actually be affiliated with it. And so I think, we don't understand anymore because everything's political. Everything's done for a camera, whether it's for Instagram or for Facebook or for the press. And especially those people whose job is to stand in Liam Neeson, in that it's not in that I do think it's important that he be vulnerable, but somehow it got turned into virtue signaling, and then people are like, wait a second.
Yeah. All right, we're going to move on to our trivia because our contestants are waiting in the wind here. So I'm going to call them.
All right. Let's get that call going. The Yeah, our feed's been terrible. Our internet feed's been terrible for some reason. But the non-broken up feed will be available later.
Hello? I got one. Waiting for...
Let's put some music on in the
I
background.
got the other.
Oh, you got it. Okay.
Are you both there?
Yeah. I actually forgot. Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. We have a Greg of Southern California. Welcome to the show, Greg.
Well, thank you.
And we have a John, defending champion of Milwaukee, Oregon. So, Josh is going to do us the honors of hitting the game music, and we're about to start our trivia, which... Hold on. Megadeth has to play because I can't hear myself talk. Okay. So, Oscars are in between shows for us. Next Sunday, I think they are. So, this trivia is Oscar edition trivia. So, we have John attempting to defend his title. So, there's 8 questions, okay, guys? Okay. First to answer wins. Here we go. Who holds the most Best Actor nominations of all time?
Leonardo DiCaprio.
Wrong.
De Niro.
Wrong. 5 seconds.
Pacino.
Time's up. Jack Nicholson. Score is 0-0. Next question. These 2 films are the only sequels to ever win a Best Picture Oscar. 2 films.
Aliens. Oh, Best Picture.
What?
Godfather 2?
Godfather 2 is one of them. The other is...
Empire Strikes Back?
Best Picture?
What?
I think someone's Star Wars bias is shining through.
Wow.
The other film, we'll give you a point. You had one of them. The other film was Lord of the Rings: Return of the King.
Are you kidding me? Over Empire? Come on.
Yeah, well, don't hit the monitor here. Third question. So 1 point to Greg. Third question. This film was the first ever Best Picture winner, a silent film about fighter pilots during World War I.
Oh, it's on the tip of my tongue.
If you're watching the show, I'll give you a hint.
That doesn't count.
5 seconds.
Oh, when you say it,
Wings.
I know
The film is Wings. Fourth question, 1-0. John is on the track here to lose his title. Fourth question. This recent musical tied the record 12 for most nominations for a single film.
The Greatest Showman.
Wrong.
The Sound of Music.
That's not a recent musical. You're not listening to the question, John.
All right. Didn't they redo Hair?
Hairspray, you mean?
Hairspray.
Okay. 3, 2, 1. Time's up. La La Land.
That one's pretty obvious.
The score is still 1-0. Fifth question, halfway through. The Hurt Locker won This Woman and the first woman to ever win it, Best Director.
Oh, I don't know that one. I won't even guess. Sofia Coppola?
Sofia Coppola. No,
That's a good guess.
since you both don't know it. Catherine Bigelow is her name. She directed The Hurt Locker. I think she also did Zero Dark 30, I think.
The views presented in this
Oh, my bad.
Josh is getting carried away. Sixth question, the score is still 1-0. This Best Supporting Actor winner was unfortunately never able to receive his award when he was posthumously recognized.
Oh my
the
gosh.
8th and most recent artist to be recognized in this way.
Is it Heath Ledger?
It is Heath
Yes,
Ledger for
yes.
the Joker.
Job done.
1-1 with 2 questions left. This is getting intense.
All right,
It's going to come down to these last two. Please wait for me to finish the question before you answer. Christoph Waltz became a Tarantino favorite and a household name when he won an Oscar for his efficiency at snuffing out Jews in this retconned World War II film.
Inglourious Bastards.
Yes, Greg. Inglourious Bastards.
Oh,
Whoa!
Whoa!
I said too nice.
This is a family-friendly show. Let's
That was-
keep the
Bovine excrement.
bovine
It's acceptable.
excrement is acceptable. The score is 2-1. Here we go. 8th question. Which of these animated title movies... Oh, wait. Sorry. Let me restart. Which of these animal-titled movies did not win the Oscar for Best Picture? A. Dances with Wolves. B. The Deer Hunter. C. The Lion in Winter. Or D. Silence of the Lambs.
Lion in Winter.
The Lion in Winter is correct. What that means
That is an upset.
is an upset, and we have a new winner of the Culture Insanity Podcast Trivia Game.
What that means is I got more Red Bull coming to me.
The man wants Red Bull.
Yep.
So congratulations to Greg of Southern California. Because Californians are just smarter, I guess. John?
California, so I'm good with that.
Oh, there you go. The plot thickens.
And you escaped, so I should just give it all to you. Good job, John.
All right.
Got it, Ivory Tower. Good job, Greg.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Bye. The upset of season 2.
That was an upset.
All right, so last topic of the show. Man, an hour starts to really get away from you quick. We're noticing.
Last topic.
An hour really gets away from you. Okay,
Yep.
so this is going to be a two-parter, and so I get some context involved. So there's a whole feud, I guess, if you can even call it that. There's a whole thing between Ellen Page, who's an actress, and Chris Pratt, or Star-Lord, or what's his name in Parks
Andy.
and Rec? Andy, or whichever character you prefer of his. Right now that's going on. He was recently on some talk show. I don't know. I don't care. And he was talking about just being done with a 21-day fast or something like that, modeled after Daniel in the Bible doing a fast, which I don't even think was a true fast. I don't know.
Well, it was just
Like he didn't
eat
He
the
ate
meat.
vegetables.
Yeah, vegetables and water. That's
so it
it.
wasn't a true fast. Anyways, so he did a fast, and he was talking about it. Whatever. Ellen Page, again, an actress, like retweets or reblogs his interview, basically just slamming Chris Pratt or Chris Pratt's church, basically calling out, well, instead of talking about this, why don't you talk about the fact that your church... So Chris Pratt is an outspoken Christian in that industry, more and more so it seems like. He's pretty, unapologetic. I think at one award show he essentially preached the gospel without saying Jesus' name a few years ago, in 60 seconds. But anyway, so she called him out and was like, instead of, talking about this, why don't you talk about the fact that your church is hateful or bigoted toward the LGBT community, herself being someone from that community, identifying with that community. So a two-part question. The first is, should a person become the voice for an entire group? So he's being slammed, or his church is being slammed. Christianity is being slammed by this person because of what it is that they hold true. Or something. So the question is, should Christians become spokespeople for their churches? How about that? Should
Sure.
Chris Pratt become a spokesperson for his church? Should that be held against him?
You got thoughts on it? You're shaking your head over there.
It's a complex question, and it's I don't know if it's worded exactly
Feel
well.
free to reword.
Readjust our question.
The real issue is should Chris Pratt be allowed to express his own understanding and to share something personal in that way be taken out of context. That's an appropriate question. Chris Pratt does not represent me, for example, as a disciple of Christ. So, and this woman's issue with picking on him because the church holds views his church holds views that she doesn't like in regard to LGBT, that's a much more complex issue. My initial response, I guess, would be that kudos to him for being willing to take a stand for where he's at, but that doesn't make him the representative of Christianity.
I think in her defense, if I will say that, she was specifically calling out his particular church.
It's called Zoe Church.
Zoe Church, and they're like affiliated with Hillsong or something.
Yeah, I think they have one of the former pastors that goes there.
I think it says in the article that Zoe Church is like, it doesn't take a hard stance on certain things. It alludes to, maybe not being accepting of those things, but they're affiliated with Hillsong. And Hillsong is unapologetic about, saying no to this, taking a hard stance on certain things.
Well, and they should be. I mean, any church that is, we're getting to, like I said, it's a complex issue. Any church that is worth its salt and claims that they are disciples of Christ are going to be against LGBT and but I would also the lifestyle and condoning those actions which are outside of what is representative of righteousness. But the reality of it is that church is also going to be against thievery and adultery and covetousness and the list goes on and on. Mm-hmm. If you represent Christ, then you take the whole of what Christ represents, and you're going to take that position unashamedly, such as we do here at Aletheia. I don't pick on people that are LGBT. That's their issue. But does Scripture condone it? No. And as a representative of Christ, am I going to condone it? No.
Yeah. So I guess a good segue to the next part of the question is, you're saying any church worth its salt will take a hard stance on these certain topics and certain issues. Agreed. So he responded to her, and he said, and he was pretty, I would call it safe in his response, didn't necessarily take a hard stance on particular issues, and divorce either, right? He's a product, or not a product, he went through divorce. I don't know how to say that. And he had shared that even though that happened, like his church, it's not like his church sent him away, like outcast him or something, exiled him, but instead they tried their best to help him through a situation. Even though, in his response to her, I think there's some red flag stuff, and you're saying, and I agree, that any church worth its salt will take a hard stance, and he's taking a safe response. He said, my faith is important to me, but no church defines me or my life, and I am not a spokesman for any church or any group of people. So pin that. My values define who I am. We need less hate in this world, not more. I'm a man who believes that everyone is entitled to love when they want freedom from the judgment of their fellow man. So to me, there's some red flags in there about things, and maybe this let's segue into our podcast on Sunday about church identity. I don't know. But what are your guys' thoughts? He says, no church defines me or my life. There's one. I'm not a spokesperson for my church or any group of people. There's two. And my values define who I am. There's three. You want to break that down?
Well, I think he's on track on the second point, the I am not a spokesman. But it is a lot more dynamic than that. What you got to understand about Christians is that though they are not a spokesman, they are a integral part of an organism. Mm-hmm. So the finger does not speak for the body, but the finger is a part of the body which speaks to the body. So when you look at what the finger does, believe that he thinks it is. I would hope that he doesn't. I guess it's possible. A lot of Christians see themselves that way. But you're not a representative in the sense that you are not the head of the body. Christ is the head. But you are, you do speak to the body. There are things that you can tell about the body based upon looking at you.
An individual. Yeah.
And I think that that's what he's trying to say when he says that my values define it. And the thing is, he's not czar, and that's where it comes down to it. So I think the more accurate description to be made would be, or maybe a better thing to add to it would be that his values are defined by Scripture. That's what's missing from it.
They're just floating.
Right. And
they're not tethered.
And then you can say on top of that the church is the mechanism. He's not giving a theological class here, so it's like he's going to work his way through it the best that he can.
Yeah.
But you can say that the church is the mechanism by which that value system is managed. Essentially, it's so whereas the church should not define. So whereas the church in and of itself does not define how we're supposed to be and what values we're supposed to have and so on and so forth. It does
it's the vehicle for how we get there.
Yeah, it pushes you to be more like the things that you have affirmed believing.
Mm-hmm.
And that is God's way of dealing with that. And therefore it is not the definer of your values. But the church is supposed to protect those values. It is supposed to give you opportunity to follow through with those values. It is supposed to correct you when you are not following through with those values. But no, it doesn't define them. It's not supposed to make up or anything like that. So it's a really fine line. And I do think that the way that he answered gives an inappropriate
interpretation.
Yeah, it definitely makes it so that the interpretation can be open to something that's not true.
Yeah. My observation of it is that he's now trying. His response is trying to be more PC and to walk this on ice or eggshells and be careful about what he says. And it's wimpy. I mean, the reality it's intellectually dishonest, it's theologically dishonest, and he doesn't come out looking good either way.
Well, it's intellectually lazy.
Yeah,
I don't know if he's like, based upon him as a person, like when you look at him.
Well, okay, he may not be trying to be dishonest, but yes, he's certainly lazy.
Yeah. When you look at him as a person and you look at his back, you look at like his testimony and stuff. I mean, he was essentially just kind of a stoner.
Really?
Like,
I didn't know that.
That's his thing. Like
that could explain part of it.
He was the cliche of, like, just the dude going through life, whatever, and then he was challenged, and he accepted that challenge, but that was his life, was music and parties and so on and so forth. I don't get the impression that he has ever thought of himself in any way as an advocate for Christianity.
Right.
He very much falls into the line of somebody who wants to be a sincere believer in Christianity. To him is a merely personal experience. And
I think that there are lots of people who could relate to where he's coming from.
Right.
That they when confronted with individuals that are aggressive,
right,
and hold their own agenda and are aggressive in, I will go so far as to say, attacking with
sense of being humble with what's happened, and I think he's having the ride of his life. But he is quickly becoming the voice. There's a few Christians out there, just a few, who are sort of becoming the voice of Christianity in the current age of modern stardom, and he's one of them. And so I think that he is going to have to choose really quickly, like, what that means, because it's a dangerous thing to be a Christian in that particular climate.
Spotlight.
Well, what it really means is that, he needs to take seriously Paul's admonition to Timothy, to be prepared to give answers.
He needs to bone up on this.
He needs to study. He needs to study, and he needs to understand communication dynamics, and he needs to put some effort in doing that so that when the opportunities are put before him, he can represent Christianity, or more importantly, from my standpoint, he can represent Scripture accurately.
Yeah.
In regard to the issues that he's confronted with.
And if he doesn't want to be a representative of the faith, and I understand his, like he doesn't add averseness to that. If he doesn't want to be a representative to the faith, then he needs to be a good representative of his own faith. So it doesn't really matter. So there are things, that's what it comes down to, is he clearly has the Christian of is more on the sides of benefiting from it, but not along the sides of teaching it.
Yeah. Right.
And if he's going to be constantly put in a position where he has to defend it, then he should study how to teach it.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, if he constantly insists on bringing it up, like he's bringing it up when he's bringing it up, it's not like it's being extracted out of him or something. Like he's volunteering it, so be ready for all that comes with that.
It just comes from him being
the person he is.
Yeah, he's just an easygoing guy, and
just wants to share how it's been good for him, and
right. And he's not thinking through the consequences of it, and so that's a difficult situation to be in, and we need to pray for him, because I think statistically he would leave the faith before he would become a strong advocate for it. But I hope that fun-loving nature of him would keep him in his faith, even if it takes him out of his stardom. So, yeah.
Cool. I think that's going to wrap us up for season 2, episode 2 here. Yeah.
All right.
So thanks to Pastor Monty for being here. You going to be here next week again? Or no?
In 2 weeks?
No. You won't.
Oh,
you
would
weeks.
be right. Gone. You're going to be gone. So episode 3. Am I going to be here for episode 3? Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. So Pastor Monty will be here for episode 3. If you're interested in what we're talking about, check out the Facebook video. Certain links are posted. And
we're gonna have we'll repost this video so it doesn't have the internet breaking out. Yeah,
totally. The technical difficulties.
We'll get our station manager on that right after this.
Yeah, there's lots of things to look forward to. Our Abandon Initiative Ministry, which again is a local resource for young Christians to discuss their faith through relevant topics and discussions. They are doing a podcast tomorrow night at
7.
7. So relevant for given what we're talking about. You can check that out on the Abandoned Initiative Facebook page. It will be, I'm sure, reposted via the Aletheia Bible Fellowship Facebook page, maybe through the Culture Insanity Facebook page, any of our sister networks. So there's plenty of ways to find it on Facebook. That will be streamed live at 7. Again, the topic is church identity. You can check out Pastor Monty's podcast, Truth Time, on Wednesdays at 11. Yeah?
Tuesday at 11.
Tuesdays at 11. It's switched. Tuesdays at 11. Monday through Friday, posted through the Abandoned Initiative Facebook. And then this month's Cross X, or next month's Cross X, March 31st. That will be here, as I understand
That's what I hear.
At 7 p.m., Aletheia Bible Show. now.
Yep.
So that'll be fun. So you can join us here at the church or tune in on Facebook live. You can submit your questions with the hashtag CrossX, and those will find their way to us so they can be discussed by the local pastors. So with that said, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for our trivia contestants and our new winner. Congratulations, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
The views presented in this program are not of the Lafayette Bible Fellowship. You are listening to the Vigilance Radio Network.